Hi, and welcome to Light Haven, the podcast for all things spiritual, mystical, and energetic. My name is Bianca, astrologer and Reiki practitioner.
My name is Ruth, mystery student towards the awakening of consciousness.
So today, the title of this episode is "The Chosen Life and the Need for Evolution." So many people have this inner sense that something's missing, and they chase all kinds of feelings and acquisitions only to end up saying to themselves, something's missing. I just don't know what it is. And what we need to remember is that this earthly experience was one that we had chosen prior to coming here to this earth, and that many of the types of struggles that we experience are meant to be experienced. It's all part of the human experience. But knowing this doesn't make it any easier to endure. So if we're not aware, we can easily go on a downward spiral with no understanding of why or how you got there or how to get yourself out. And I'm going to start with the astrological weather. I feel like we haven't done that in a while. And it's going to be an interesting one coming up to Christmas and New Year's. It's going to be quite the dynamic. It'll be quite dynamic, I should say. There's a few configurations happening, but the ones that I wanted to focus on was the Venus square Uranus, that we start to feel that around Christmas Day, and then it will linger around up until New Year's Eve. So that's a good 5-6 days. Now, I I want to start off by just kind of sharing a little bit about what Venus and Uranus, like what they are, or if you're not familiar with, I guess, with the archetypes of the planets, then it would probably be more meaningful for you for me to just explain a little bit. So Uranus, it gives us this Promethean quality. I'm not sure if you are well versed in Greek mythology, but um, Prometheus was the one who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. So he's kind of like this cosmic trickster. But he also represents a whole lot of other things, topics to do with liberation, freedom, progress, also defiance and rebellion, especially when it comes to like asserting our will and shaping the world through our creative power. Um, so Uranus has to do with also awakening and disruption.
I love this because Prometheus has great significance in esotericism as well,
Oh,
and
really?
all of these things that you're mentioning cross over to the spiritual studies.
I love
So
that.
beautiful.
Yes. And then we've got Venus. She loves harmony, wants to bring people together. She's quite a social planet, so she wants peace, and she wants everyone to get along. And Venus also represents beauty, creativity, aesthetic. So I see people with prominent Venus placements in a birth chart. They could sometimes like adorn themselves with nice embellishments like jewelry and very like fashionista, stylish, or someone who is into interior design. So that's a real like Venusian type of energy.
What about the
Now,
men?
um, so I mean, you don't have to be a female to be an interior designer. It could be a guy.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would say someone who takes care of themselves, who's clean cut, or takes care of their presentation. Yeah, I'm trying to.
No,
So
that makes sense. I'm just
yeah,
thinking of someone that has that connection who's a male, and I was going, oh, what's their connection? But
yeah,
join the
yeah,
dots now.
yeah. And so we get Venus squaring Uranus, and that aspect is a dynamic aspect. It's the nature of Mars. So Mars is the god of war, it's action, it's aggression, it's passion. So you get these two together, and I've listed about 4 or 5 things to expect with this aspect when Venus and Uranus square each other. So we might see disruptions to peace and harmony. Uranus disruptions, Venus
Oh,
peace and
just in time
harmony.
for Christmas.
Exactly.
Hooray.
Exactly. I was just like, oh, this is going to be mm, interesting, interesting family gatherings and Christmas dinners and yeah. So I see Uranus is going to be that person that's pro like individuality and emphasizes the benefit of having different opinions, which is great, but it's kind of difficult to reach an agreement when you've got all these differing opinions. Do you get what I mean? So yeah, you could there could be a lot of clashing at the Christmas dinner table. Um,
Sounds like
that's
any family gathering.
yeah. So yeah. If you start to witness that at your family gatherings, then just be like, oh, it's that Venus square Uranus.
Right, right.
um,
Well, now we have a reason so we can just accept it and move on.
yeah, and just be like, I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's just one out of many, and it doesn't have to be that way. And so there's another one, at more of an individual basis. So you could feel inclined to experiment with your image. So that could be change of hair color, or changing your wardrobe, changing your style. Uh, it could even go, it's kind of like a spectrum. You could get change your hair color to something that wild and wacky, like green or pink or something. Or you could change up, you could be kind of drawn towards a more non-traditional. I mean, I know green hair, pink hair is non-traditional as well, but more of like a strange kind of beauty you could be drawn to. So I don't know, like piercings or
Mm.
tattoos. Something that's a little bit risque. So there's that for an individual type of signature for Venus square Uranus. In the relationship front, there could be, mm, well, I'll put this a freedom Uranus, freedom of expression romantically, and that could mean breakups. Like I'm
Ah.
feeling I'm feeling restricted, or I feel like this isn't working for me and I need to exert my will and free my voice from this relate confines of this relationship, and I want to express myself, and which means maybe um ending a relationship that they have probably been not happy in for a while. But
Mm.
likewise, it can go the opposite way. So it really depends on the relationship. It really depends. So as you as the individual have to look back on how you've been feeling in the relationship, how you guys have been tracking along. If you guys have been doing fine, I wouldn't say a breakup is on the horizon. I could say maybe if you're feeling a little bit stuck, or if things are a little bit status quo, a little bit boring, um, or maybe you guys are stuck on this one issue that you just don't see a resolution to. Uh, Uranus is really good for bringing in like a breakthrough, and it's like
Mm.
next thing you know, um, everything's resolved, sparks are flying, and the relationship is now back on track and better than ever. So it could be the catalyst for a breakup, or it could be the catalyst for revolution or evolution within a relationship. So
Either way, it sounds fantastic. People
yeah,
speaking up and expressing what's right
yeah,
and then finding a way forward.
yeah. And then the final one, so that was number 3 and 4. And then I've got another one. The final one was you might find yourself in situations that defy the status quo, or there could be an urge or impulse to this is not so great, but the impulse or the urge to destroy or desecrate things that are beautiful or sacred, which is the
Oh.
Venus thing. This urge to desecrate, like um destroy or kind of make something sacred unsacred, or make something yeah or something unclean, or
Hmm.
so uh, I'll share an example because this could look in this. I mean, I'm thinking just real basic. If you see a beautiful mural, is that what you call it?
Mural, a mural.
Mural, yes,
Yeah.
mural, in the city, and someone just goes and like graffitis all over it, like
Mm,
curse words or whatever, and you know,
right. So
so
the
that's
tigers might come out over Christmas.
yeah. But I've experienced this already. We're not even at Christmas yet. On Instagram, it was a friend who posted a story and said, I am, I do not celebrate Christmas. I do not partake in any
Mm.
kind of anything that represents like colonialism or capitalism. Um, and, and I was just like, whoa,
Well, it doesn't have to represent those things.
right. I was like, well, that's real Uranus type of like expressing yourself in a very like strong way and saying, I don't support Christmas, whereas this is probably the one time a year where people get to see family members from overseas that they haven't seen in a long time. So there's definitely, there's that good, you've got that good side of Christmas where it brings families together. And then you've got someone who's going against the status quo and is against this Christmas season, is saying, like, I don't partake in this. It's just colonialism and capitalism and paganism, or whatever you want to call it. Like, you got all these people calling Christmas, all these different Christmas season, all these different things. So yeah, so that's like yeah, just an example of something that I experienced just recently, and I was like, it's very Uranus and Venus, square Venus. And so we'll be feeling that Christmas Day right through. It'll be intensifying up until about the 27th or 28th of December. And then it kind of like hits its peak and then starts to kind of taper off around the 30th, 31st of December, right in time for the Capricorn new moon. So that's one other thing that I wanted to talk about, was we've got a new moon in the sign of Capricorn. So that means the sun and the moon will be residing in the sign of Capricorn on the 31st for us. I think in the elsewhere in the world, like the US, Canada, I think they'll be experiencing that on the 30th, but we will have it here in New Zealand and Australia on the 31st, early morning of the 31st. So it's not going to be the evening time. The sun and moon come together in a perfect conjunction in the early hours of New Year's Eve in the morning time. So morning to midday is where we get that conjunction happening. But as we know, we've got the new moon is significant. It symbolizes or represents new beginnings. So what a way to kick off 2025 is let's have a new moon in Capricorn. Um, and so it could be a good time for intention setting and looking towards the year ahead and thinking, what are some things that are working for me that I want to keep doing, that I want to work on? What are some things that are not working for me? I just want to do away with it and start fresh. 2025, new year, new me. So, so yeah, that's the main takeaways for the coming 2 weeks, New Year's and Christmas. So yeah.
Gotcha. So there might be a bit of a rocky patch right through Christmas,
Yeah,
as
it can be a little
is
bit
often
rocky.
expected,
Yeah.
but then new beginnings for the new year.
You could be sitting there thinking if you were the one to disturb the peace, you'd be like, no, should I really have said that? Was it really worth it? No, but yeah, it's not all bad. Like I said, like you could be changing up your look. You could be like, yeah, I'm gonna get a tattoo that I've really wanted for a long time.
Oh
And
my. Do you
yeah.
know what? This
Hmm.
makes a lot of sense
Hmm.
because my sister is coming up from Wellington and she is a budding tattoo artist. And a few of
Oh,
us in our family have put our hand up
mhm.
and said, yes, please, this is what I'd like. So I
Cool.
I think that a couple of us will be getting either new tattoos or updating old ones over Christmas. We're all going to be coming
I
out of
love
Christmas with glad wrap.
that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it's
See?
exactly, yeah, we're not going to be fighting. We're going to be in pain getting
Hmm.
tattoos.
Hmm. And how many families can say that they're getting together and sharing and getting tattoos? Like that's not a typical Christmas gathering. So it's very yeah, different and kind of cool and fun. So
Yeah, well, you
it's
said
cool.
green hair, so similar, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, not green hair, but something like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think ups and downs are always going to be there, right? And
Hmm.
life has its fair share of challenges, whether it's family or our other interpersonal relationships, work situations, and all kinds of things. It could be the
Hmm.
neighbors. Basically, there is no shortage of challenges. And with the title of this episode being around the chosen life, so referencing some kind of destiny and predetermination. Uh, so this kind of a way of looking at the world can, for a lot of people, if they said, oh, this is fated or it's meant to be,
Mm.
it could be a positive thing, like it could help people feel better about how it's gone. But for some other people, they might need to have a broader context to be able to navigate the world and its challenges and to
Right.
feel safe and motivated and make sense of what is happening for them. To me, I would categorize people, just broadly speaking, and of course, we shouldn't necessarily categorize people, but if we're speaking on a very general sense, to me, there are two kinds of individuals.
Hmm.
There are those, you could say, the lost and the found,
Hmm.
right? So the lost ones are maybe at sort of the beginning of the hero's journey,
Hmm.
or they're in the dark night of the soul period where they're in that turmoil and difficulty. They're in their first really low period. So whether
Mm.
they're before their first low period, but they're quite aimless, or they've entered into a rough patch, they may have a lot of confusion about how things are going to go for them. Will there be a light at the end of the tunnel? Or the circumstances of their life could be pretty mellow, but they're also aimless. They don't know who they are. They don't know why they're here. They don't have something that makes them want to get out of bed in the morning. So you often see all different groups and cultures, organizations, and even religions. People like to gather around an idea, something to give them an orientation. And whether it's a group of people that love music, or a group of people that are passionate about their church, or a group of people that want to give back and do something for the community, we, at some point in our life, if we're going to shift out of the lost category into the found category and become the kind of person that we could call activated, like they've found their pizzazz, they know who they are meant to be in the world in this lifetime. They have a very clear direction and they're intentional about it. They're very clear on who they are and where they're going, and they have a purpose. So, to me, if we assess our lives and our direction with this kind of an understanding, then we can be honest with ourselves about where we are currently at, not to feel bad about our situation or to think, oh no, I don't have a life goal, but to excite us that, great, okay, I can see some areas where I could potentially get excited about certain aspects of my life. I could make discoveries about the challenges that I want to face or that I want to take on, and what kind of person I need to be in order to be fit for those challenges. So, by asking ourselves these questions and viewing our life through the orientation of, am I activated yet? Have I come into who I'm meant to be? Then we can find those areas of our life that we're still not clear on, those areas where there may be some darkness, some haziness, and we can start to shine a light and uncover how we want that to go. And then by design, we can begin to direct our life in a very purposeful, motivating manner. So I think when we look at it like that, then whether you said that we chose our life prior to being incarnated or we're choosing our life now, to me, it's the same. From moment to moment, we always choose. And that can be really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah.
someone, yeah,
Go.
if someone doesn't have a purpose, then when they wake up in the morning, everything will be almost 100% reactive. So from the sound of the alarm, beep, 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 okay, the alarm jolts me out of bed and I stumble like a zombie towards the coffee. And then I go, oh, got to go to work, got to go to work. Is it a job I'm meant to be in? I don't know. Are those colleagues people that I'm meant to be around? I don't know. Is this industry right for me? I don't know. But there I am, and I go to work, and am I improving at my job? Am I going somewhere? I don't know. And then I come home and, oh, I'm exhausted. What am I going to do tonight? I don't know. There's the TV, like a robot. I move towards it and I turn it on and I just lie there. And it's not to say that any of these individual events has anything wrong with them on their own, because they don't. They're, you can watch TV, you can have a job, you can have colleagues, and you can be in any industry. That's not the point. The point is that unless we begin to come into awareness of our being, then a lot of the things that happen to us instead of us happening to the world. So to me, I think that it's almost like there's a higher order to things. You can either have all the mundane things, or you can have a very special purpose that is unique to you. And when I say special purpose, I'm not referring to the accolades of society or the admiration of your neighbors and the populace at large, how much money you accumulate, whether or not you have these degrees, or I know, people in the military want all the badges and the stripes, or whether you are most honorable doctor, and you have some kind of title. To me, those things they're essentially constructs of this current society. And if we were to fast forward 1,000 years, forward or back, well, we'd have different constructs. And when you cut through those constructs, you'll see that they're very hollow. When someone looks up to you and gives you all this respect, but meanwhile they're caught up in their own head about their own things. Like it's a lot of it is empty drama, and we can chase this feeling, this sentiment of being admired. But if we were to find ourselves in difficulty, what do those things actually do for us? They're not there for us at our lowest moments or when we come into challenges. So that's what I mean by they're hollow. I'm not saying you can't have a degree or a title, but it's important to understand the relative benefit of something. And we definitely, as a current society, place probably too much importance on these things. And that's why you'll have people that strive and strive and strive for these hollow goals. And then when they get there, they have this feeling of disillusionment or disappointment. Once they've achieved, say, fame or some kind of awards, often people who are in the entertainment industry will chase certain kinds of awards. And when these sorts of empty goals were someone's life purpose and they get there, then that's when they can get quite depressed. So to me, when I say purpose, it means something that has benefit and value and almost a virtuous quality to it, because these are the kinds of things that really feed our soul. And I think a lot of people can sense that if they're honest with themselves and they look back at, okay, especially I think if you're in your late 30s through your 40s, I guess, that kind of middle of the road point where you've done enough, you've experienced enough, and you've chased enough things to go, well, some of the things that I thought were going to be very, very satisfying were less satisfying than I thought they were going to be. And then if we extrapolate that, a lot of the other things that are still on our I really want this list, we can kind of intuit that they may not deliver what we think they will. So without virtue and deeper meaning, then many of the daily activities that we undertake can be quite hollow. And the underlying part of this is that they may be connected to certain negative aspects of ourselves, like the shadow aspect that we haven't yet comprehended, things like people pleasing or chasing a feeling to do with our reputation, actually because we just feel really inadequate inside. Because if you were grounded in your person, then you wouldn't be chasing a certain feeling of, oh yes, everyone looks at me and admires me. You'd be so centered where you are. You wouldn't require anything external to support you just being. You could just be, and that would be okay. But it's all these kinds of internal insecurities that drive us towards wanting to portray ourselves in a certain way or be seen in a certain way. And at the end, we can either find this by contemplating on it or by experiencing it for ourselves, that that's not where happiness is at. So what I'm getting at is that we need a good frame of reference that can help orient us and provide meaning to our lives. And so when we're, say, sitting down to ascertain the direction of our lives, what we stand for, and where we want to go, these are all very big questions. No one is saying that we need to answer these questions overnight. But sometimes the first thing that can help to orient us is knowing what it isn't. And then through the process of elimination, we may come to maybe a set of virtues that resonate for us, and then the qualities that we excel in, and we'll find an overlap that's going to direct us on our life mission. And so I wanted to highlight the difference between someone taking blind action without a meta view of what is going on in their life, and being driven by these kind of like these motivators that sit a lot deeper and may have a dark aspect to them. You'll often see this in the overachiever, and I know this because I'm speaking from personal experience. I was that overachiever for years, and I did lots of study and collected a lot of certificates. And it was actually through some of my training that the whole thing unraveled, because when I started studying life coaching and NLP and psychology, then I began to understand myself and what was driving me. And it actually led me to stop studying psychology, because I realized the internal vested interests were not actually coming from a desire to understand psychology, but from some kind of internal inadequacy. And once that had been addressed, then this motivation to keep studying also disappeared, because one was feeding the other. So it's very interesting. It's fascinating how we can have all these desires and sentiments and feel like this is the direction of my life. This is where I want to go. But unless we can take a step back and go deeper and understand where those motivations come from, we can spend years barking up a tree that we didn't want to bark up. I don't want to say wrong tree, because there's always a lesson and there's always learning from all of our experiences. And I don't regret any of my past learnings and the things that I've done. It's all a journey and it's fine. And I think when you come through it, you can gain a perspective if you look back and you really try and go deep and understand your actions, rather than just perpetually moving forward, chasing these desires and not really understanding yourself. And I think a lot of these hidden vested interests, they often come from our childhood conditioning.
Oh
So
yeah, totally.
yeah. I mean, if you want to get spiritual, then we could go, oh, definitely your past lives, because you'll see some children born with conditioning that shouldn't be there, and there it is. And you go, that didn't come from their parents. But putting that matter to one side, even if we were to just look at this life alone, for example, you might have a parent that tells a child all about the dangers of germs. And this parent has a severe paranoia. They're always scrubbing everything and putting bleach on it and Dettol, and the floors are crystal clean, but the environment has probably got too few germs now. They need some germs for their immune system, but nope, there's no germs there. And to top it off, the parent is continually reminding the child how dangerous the world is, and just putting this lens over their outlook on the world that is now just all about germs. When sure, there's germs out there, but there's other things too, like kittens and strawberry pie. But they're now obsessed with germs. And if these fears are passed on from the parent to the child at a very early impressionable age, sometimes even before they've started to have memories that they're going to remember when they're an adult, say 3, 4, 5 years old. They may not necessarily remember these conversations or interactions with their parent. But then when they grow up, guess what? They're a hypochondriac and they think this is who they really are. And they say, I'm this kind of person, or I've always been this way. And then they become obsessed with cleaning everything and really fearful and don't shake anyone's hand. But they don't understand that this is part of previous conditioning. Have you
Mm.
ever met anyone like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite common to I think it's quite common for people to carry these conditionings and place it on a given source, like, oh, my parents were like that, so I'm like that, or this is the way I grew up, or um, but I've been reading this book that has really made me question whether it really is conditioning or not. And I'm not saying that conditioning doesn't happen. I think it does happen for sure. But what you're what you're what you were saying kind of led me on this on this little mental journey to um, bring up some of the things that I'd been reading in the book The Soul's Code by James Hillman, who was the founder of archetypal psychology. And I've been listening to the Life and Ideas of James Hillman, Volume 1, The Making of a Psychotherapist, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
But there's 3 volumes. And so this obviously only takes me up to his mid-30s. So I've yet to go to Volume 2 and Volume 3. But back to the conditioning part. Um, There's this interesting study that was, or I don't even know if it was a study, but it it was an example that came out of the Soul's Code where James Hillman he recounts these twins, and I'm not sure if I've already talked to you about this, but I've definitely told other people. So forgive me if I'm repeating myself to you, but the listeners might be curious. Is that there were twins that were separated at birth, and they went to two different families. And upon when they grew older, they were interviewed, and they I'm watering this down and some details might be skewed, but the gist of it was the question that they were asked was, um, oh, I don't even know if it was a question, but they were saying, one of them was like, well, I'm a clean freak because my the house was always clean when I was young. And it was just spotless, never a thing out of place. And so therefore I just grew up that way. And so this is what I'm like. And then meanwhile, the other twin who was raised in a completely different family said the same thing. Said, "Yeah, I'm a clean freak. I'm a neat freak. I have to have everything spotless because growing up, the house was always messy. Everything it was always so dirty, and I just felt very uncomfortable. So now that I'm older and in control of like my living space and my living environment, I choose to have a spotless house." So it was really interesting how, and I think that came out of the chapter titled "The Parental Fallacy." So it's almost like we like to think that this conditioning came from our upbringing, but could there be more to this than what we think? You know, it's such a humanistic thing to be like, huh, I've pinpointed the like where this came from. And so therefore, knowing that there's like safety and security in knowing where something originated from, therefore it gives me purpose, it gives me a reason for being the way I am. But if we think outside of that, and I think overall this could be the greater point here, the bigger picture here, in terms of we have these characteristics that we think are embedded in us because it's our genes, because it's what I inherited from my mom, it's what I inherited from my dad. But what if we had this way of thinking or believing that I don't have to be this way, and that I can unlearn or recondition myself into the into a new way of being, or into a different way of being, like it's kind of like that, I guess, belief in like that evolution and growth, and that things that you think are embedded in you, the experiences that you think you grew from, or that happened to you, that have made you who you are, might not have to be that way. And that we can free ourselves from that belief, and I guess like change up our characteristics, change up who we are. Like it's that, because I think the soul is I believe the soul is here to, which the soul is never changing, but it's here to experience things. And so that's what it's doing when it's here. It's in our body, and we're experiencing all these things, the turmoil, the challenges, but the bliss and the happiness and the joy, all of these things. So I think I've just like gone way off to sorry. Yeah, it just
No,
led
but
me
that
down
makes
this.
sense. I get that because so in the study, and I think there are lots of twins studies
Mm,
that all came to quite different conclusions, some
yeah.
one way, some the other way. And you've mentioned, okay, so these twins, they were in different households, but they shared same characteristics, which seems
Hmm.
to support a genetic cause by the, the regular reasoning, or kind of that would be a natural conclusion to say, oh, yeah, great. So now we
Mm,
know why, because it was from their parents. And then there were also other twins where it went the other way. And the environment, maybe they grew up in the same household, but they're completely different people. So you have all, basically, you have enough scenarios to baffle scientists and
pretty much.
not let them come to any one conclusion. And I
Mm,
remember Ramdas, who's a good example of a psychologist who had done all of the studies and then completely left his discipline and moved into spirituality because his consciousness was expanded and he had all kinds of experiences that he
mhm,
couldn't explain with his guru in India. And he mentions in one of his talks that they could not pinpoint it. I think it was something like 30, I'll have to double check, 30% or 40% of the way people are, they could say, yes, we think we know where this came from. And
mm,
the rest of it, they couldn't. So because they couldn't figure out where it came from, then Ramdas says, ha, see, so they were reincarnated or reborn, however you want to call it. And so I just find it funny that we've gone round and round, and unless you were to take a more expanded, open-minded view that, hey, I'm not going to be so arrogant as to say I 100% know where everything came from, then you may never know. If you don't just expand your thinking just a little bit. And I apologize. I don't
yeah.
know if you can hear, but there's a lot of banging in the
Oh,
background.
that's
I don't know if
okay.
you can hear it or not, but I'm having a
Uh,
deck built and they're still
oh.
going. So I can hear a lot of noise outside, but I've got the noise suppression on.
I
So
think it's
hopefully,
fine. I
okay,
I
good.
I didn't quite. I mean, I heard a little bit of like muffling, but I couldn't quite make out what it was. So it's fine. A little bit of rustling in the background. So,
Yeah, we're gonna have a deck for Christmas, so
oh,
they're
exciting.
rushing to get it done. Yeah,
Um, yeah. Anyway, so you were saying.
yeah. So the idea of conditioning, you're right in that we may not always 100% understand where it came from. To the extent that we can understand, how we've created those
Mm.
sentiments, those actions that can be really helpful for us when we're trying to change. But also, even if we can't fully understand it, if we focus on the kind of future we want to create and start with a positive intention, I can't guarantee that you can change this way, because I do think there are other facets to it, but at least you're setting your sights on the right direction. And the ancient saying goes, seek and you will find. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have the intention to change, to become more aware, then I would say you're on the right track. As so many people, they're completely lost in one way or another until they have what in spiritual schools they may call the awakening, or waking up, even to a small degree. And before that, there are all kinds of different ways to be lost, whether it's being aimless, whether it is behaving almost robotically from day to day by simply reacting to everything that comes your way. There's also another kind of being lost where you are stuck in the past. And I've witnessed this. It's such a sad state to get caught in. I had a friend some years ago who was lost in the past, and he had ended up becoming buried in the overuse of socially acceptable vices. To me, the person that was once there became a shell, and because of this, our friendship ended. But the key lesson is to understand how they got into that circumstance. So the way that it happened was, it started with compulsive rumination. They had a few key traumatic events that took place. And instead of getting help and finding a way out, or even some of the help that they received, they didn't apply. Like, if you have your therapist gives you homework and you don't apply it, then you're not going to get better. And eventually, the key turning point in a bad way for them was they became fully identified with those past events. And that's how they lost themselves. And then they went down a path of being consumed by this darkness. I don't mean to be all doom and gloom, but it was sobering to understand the the sequence of events, because in some way it was like a, at least you could learn from someone else's situation. Yes, it's sad, and we wouldn't wish it upon anyone, but you can only control yourself. So at least, if there's nothing you can do to help someone else, the best help you can be for the world is to be a better person yourself. It starts with you, rather than pointing the finger at everyone and what they need to change in. We're the only person we can control. So I think if we were to summarize a lot of what we've talked about, I'd say it could boil down to being aware of what happened to you yesterday, what happened to you last week, but not just what happened to you, but your part in it
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this friend that went down a dark path in their life, it happened because they didn't have that light of awareness
Right.
on this sequence of events as it was unfolding. And I think if they did have that, they could have prevented themselves from going down that path. So for
Mm-hmm.
us to look at it, if we were to take life as a school and see, well, every day I have these experiences, there's the external events that I may not have control over, but I always have control over my internal state. I'm not a victim of
Mm-hmm.
circumstance. I'm not, my internal state, my emotions, and my internal response is not controlled by the external event. That is like the last frontier. That is the last part that the world and the outside circumstances cannot take from me. I have full control over that. Even if everything else were not the way I wanted it, the internal state doesn't have to be in a way you don't like.
Sounds very
So,
empowering.
yeah, it is. Instead of saying, oh, this person said that, that person did this to me,
Mm-hmm.
this company did that to me. Oh, my husband, my wife, my colleague, my grandma, my this, my that, my friend, they're not my friend anymore. We can
Mm-hmm.
have so many complaints, and those things could be true and they could be difficult. However, when we look at it in that way and we point the finger and we place the blame and we complain, what we're doing is we're giving up that last ounce of power and autonomy that we still have. That
Mm.
last bit of the free part of us that can decide. And if we give
Mm-hmm.
away that, there is nothing left. Then we
Mm-hmm.
are 100% doomed, but we don't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
As we begin to strengthen that last free part of ourself and take back the awareness around how we're feeling, how we're responding, this power will resonate outwards and it will begin to affect the people, the relationships, the work circumstances, our financial circumstances, and everything around us. So it is a critical point to focus on and understand how we respond to things, how we understand the circumstances of our lives and take them as a way to grow, to evolve, and make further discoveries on our journey. So when we look at life as a school, there's always going to be something that can encourage us, that can orient us, and thereby, day by day, we can continue to make progress. We can grow
Mm.
as a person and we can discover our full potential and our life's meaning and purpose.
I love
So,
that.
yeah, I would highlight the external events and your internal state are two separate things, and the internal state is what you have control over.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I think, yeah, in other words, where you put it, for me, how I took it was that it's important not to over-identify yourself with the external events and make it mean something about your internal state. We can use external events as opportunities for growth, and as we know, as you've mentioned, Ruth, that the that this life is like a school. You know, we're here to learn. And there was something that I really wanted to share, but I feel like we're going over time and we need to wrap this up. But maybe we can unpack this a little bit more in a later episode. Was this like this cosmic law of cause and effect? And Plato goes into describing he's got this conceptualization of human beings as having this dual nature, and you know, we carry the light and the darkness, the higher consciousness with the lower consciousness realms, and then you know it's that duality. And just talk, like he talks about the there's this we sometimes feel this pull towards one way or the other, and it's about controlling those impulses, and that bliss is not necessarily a state of balance, but it's more of the understanding of of the cause and effect and the consequences thereof, like of vice versus virtue. So we'll go. I think we can go more into it later in another episode, and
Absolutely.
also,
I'd love to unpack that in a future conversation.
yeah,
100%. I think that'll be really
yes,
interesting.
yes, because we can get really, really deep with that. But also, and there was another, yeah, and I want to talk about the myth of which is also really cool. It's one of the stories that Plato has in his book, The Republic, I believe. So, that as well is more to do with maybe more so destiny and fate, but also, yeah, it's a little bit of consequences as well of our actions and things like that. So yeah,
Sounds good. Really exciting. I'm
but
looking forward to it.
yeah, but we're at time and just wanted to wrap it up here. So we talked about some cool things, definitely with the keeping in mind the astrological weather forecast for the next coming weeks over Christmas and New Year's. Just be prepared for some some random acts of free speech.
Difference.
Lots of differences,
Yeah.
lots of differing opinions flying around, lots of people exerting their own will and things like that. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I really like some of the things that you also had mentioned as well, just in terms of how we, some of us, we could be just oblivious to life, or we could be, using our time with being constructive um, and trying to grow and develop ourselves and not let, I guess, conditioning, not allow ourselves to be victim of past, um, um, I guess, past experiences or conditioning, and just to open our minds up to change and to the possibilities of growth. But this isn't to take away the traumatic experiences that as humans we may have experienced in the past, and that doesn't. So I just want, I just want listeners to know that, this is in no way, shape, or form saying that, you must forget what has happened to you, or the experiences that you've had, but more just this is kind of like a hope that things don't have to be the same, in that you can grow to be, you can shape your future into something that you want it to be, and not take your current external circumstances, whether that's now or how they have been in the past, to be your future. So um, I leave you with these words, and I, I thank you all for coming and listening to us. And if you have
And we
any
want to wish
questions,
you a Merry
yeah,
Christmas as well. Merry
yeah,
Christmas.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yes.
And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to just reach out to us. We love to hear from you. Thank you for listening. And remember, the path to your best reality is in your hands to create when you become conscious.